Have you ever wanted to write your own song? Maybe you've played guitar for a while, but you don't know where to start. Or you could be a beginner who knows just a few basic open chords. Wherever you are on your guitar journey, being able to write songs is a skill that will improve your connection to the instrument, unlock your creative voice, and turn your playing into something uniquely your own. So in this video, I'm going to give you 4 simple tips that will allow anyone to write their first song on a guitar, regardless of ability. This works on acoustic or electric and in any genre. Let's dive in. Writing songs can seem like a mystery. There are countless stories of songs coming to artists in a dream, like a bolt of lightning where inspiration instantly strikes. For this reason, many people think it is an ability that some are just born with. But I'm here to tell you that this isn't true. Songwriting is a craft which can be learned and developed over time. People who seem to be natural songwriters will have committed countless hours to writing music, thinking about music, and critically listening to music. So the beauty of this is that once you grasp the basics and write even the most simple song, most people will be really impressed with your work. Songs are made up of several elements. This will vary by genre, but generally you have the chords or the harmony. This is like the background or the canvas of the song. Then above this you have a tune or melody. Think of this like the foreground. And then you might have some lyrics, which are words sung along to the melody. One of the biggest barriers to writing your first song on the guitar is not knowing where to start. Let me tell you, it's actually simpler than you think. And this is the first tip to write your first song on the guitar. Start with the chords. When you start playing the guitar, one of the first things you learn are basic open chords. And you only need 2 or 3 of these to write your first song with. So what chords are we going to use? Well, in music, you have what are known as keys. You don't need to know about these in detail to write your first song, but put simply, they are collections of chords that sound good together. Have a look at the 2 groups of chords on screen. Group 1 is C major, F major, and G major. And group 2 is G major, C major, and D major. Are you able to play the 3 chords in one of these groups? I know that F major causes some problems for new guitarists, so you could get away with just C and G in group 1 if they are the only 2 chords that you can play. I'm going to go with my personal preference and use group 2. Chords get played in something called progressions. A progression is just a sequence of chords. For example, playing the 3 chords from your chosen group, one after the other, could be called a progression. Think of chord progressions as the building blocks of songs. To create progressions, have a go at playing your chords in different orders. Maybe you play them one after the other, or alternate between just 2 chords. Even just hanging out on one chord for a while before changing could be considered a progression. Experiment with your group of 3 chords and make a note of any combinations that sound good to you. To give you some inspiration for this, I'll take the 3 chords from group 2 and just play them in random orders to try things out. I'll put the chords on screen if you hear anything you want to try yourself. If you're working on your first song but you aren't enjoying the process, then it's easy to become fed up with it all. That's exactly why I send a free weekly newsletter to thousands of guitarists, breaking down songwriting concepts in a clear and practical way that will keep you motivated. If you want to write better songs with more confidence, then head to writeonguitar.com or click the link in the description to sign up. Simple chord progressions are great because they are easy to play. But the flip side of this coin is that they can quickly become boring. Fortunately, there are several things that we can do to change up even the simplest progressions. This is where the guitar becomes a great songwriting tool. It offers so many ways to play chords. I'm playing my acoustic guitar here, but what we discussed can be played on any guitar. If you have an electric guitar and effects pedal, you can also experiment with different sounds to alter your chord progressions and your songs. So the second tip for writing your first song on guitar is to change things up. But what exactly can we change? Well, there are almost infinite options, but I'm going to group things into 3 simple ideas. First up, we're going to look at changing the play style of our chords. You saw in the intro of the video me giving an example of fingerstyle guitar. This is one of many ways to play the chords in your progressions. Let's start with the simplest play style. That is just to strum a chord once and allow it to sustain. This is what I used to demonstrate the last example, so I won't repeat it. This gives you plenty of time to change chords, and it has the effect of sounding like you are slowing the pace of the song down. This can be useful for parts where maybe you have more contemplative or emotional lyrics and you want the chords to take a bit of a step back into the background. The next play style is the backbone of rhythm guitar playing, using a strumming pattern. A strumming pattern is a way of playing a single chord with different rhythms. There are many ways to do this, but the most important things you will come across are downstrokes and upstrokes. When I played the sustained chords, I used a single downstroke. A strumming pattern could be as simple as using 4 downstrokes or upstrokes. Or it could be a bit more nuanced, with a combination of these. You can listen for strumming patterns in your favourite music, or by looking them up online. I've found the best way is just to finger a single chord and experiment with up and down strokes until you are happy. Then you really create something unique to you. Strumming patterns are often communicated by what you do on each beat of the bar by using the numbers 1 to 4, and then what happens in between these beats with the and symbol. You can see this on screen, so it would be said as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. In the next example, I'll play through the chords twice, once with 4 downstrokes per chord, and then once with a more varied strumming pattern. Now let's look at arguably the most widely used guitar play style, palm muting. Although mainly associated with distortion and power chords, palm muting can be used on any chord and any sort of guitar, including acoustic guitars. If you're unfamiliar with the idea, you gently put the bottom of your palm onto the strings as you play to dampen them. This can be used to control distortion or to give a pleasing rhythmic crunch to the chords. On acoustic, it helps to control the volume and can even be applied only to certain strings. It's a really versatile technique that is worth experimenting with in your songs. I'll play our group 2 chords now with some palm muting so you can hear how it sounds on acoustic guitar. So far we've been playing chords as blocks, with all of the notes being heard at the same time. But the beauty of the guitar is that we can easily break chords apart and play their notes one by one. Playing notes of a chord in a sequence like this is called an arpeggio. Arpeggios are great for song sections where you want to slow things down or provide a different feel without having to change the chords that you are playing. Arpeggios can be played with a pick or with the fingers, as I did with the song in the intro. To let you hear the difference that arpeggios bring, I'll play our chords through twice, once as a single strum and then as arpeggios. The second thing you can change up with your chords is the rhythm. This is where you start to think about how often you play a chord for and how quickly you change chords. To do this, we need to think about units of time, in particular the bar or measure. A bar is divided into a number of beats. The most typical combination is 4 beats in a bar, also known as 4/4 time. These beats are evenly divided, as we saw in the strumming section earlier. So if we play a chord for an entire bar, it lasts for 4 beats. It doesn't matter what play style we use. If we hang out on the same chord, then we haven't changed chord. This is like the default, but if you play every chord for the same duration, it quickly becomes boring. So what you can do is mix and match chord durations to generate interest. With just the 3 chords you've been working with already, you have almost infinite ways to combine the chords with different durations. Chords can last for 3 beats, 1 beat, and even subdivisions between this. Think of the ands between beats that we discussed in the strumming section. With that in mind, I'm now going to play some different chord durations with the 3 chords from Group 2 to give you some inspiration. Now it's time for the third idea to change things up with your progressions: chord voicings. This is slightly more advanced, but can have a dramatic effect on how your songs sound on the guitar. Each of the major chords that we've looked at is actually just constructed with 3 notes. And if you know about the guitar, you'll know that the same note appears all over the neck. So there are opportunities to play the same chord in different ways all over the guitar. These are known as chord voicings. Beginner guitarists often start with what are known as open chords. These are easy to play, mostly around the 1st fret of the guitar. Then the next step is learning about bar chords. Now I know these can be difficult, but they open up some extra voicings for you. What this means is you can create a feeling of rising and falling with the same chords, allowing you to move around the neck. Maybe you contrast a chorus with a verse by just playing the chords higher up. The options are really endless. In the next example, I'll show you how this can be achieved. I'll play a rising and falling progression using just the G, C and D chords again. Being able to create simple major chord progressions is a great starting point for writing your first song on the guitar. But what if we want to take a sad turn and inject some more emotion into our music? Well, first, we need to get organised. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that the groups of chords we've looked at are called keys. Specifically, they are from major keys. If we take group 2, which I've been using, then we can label each of the chords with a number, written as a Roman numeral. G major is 1, C major is 4, and D major is 5. The 1 chord gives us the name of the key. So in this case, this is the key of G major. And group 1 is the key of C major. The numbers tell us the role of each chord. 1 is the most important. Think of it like the home chord. It's the centre of gravity where everything is ultimately leading, so it feels safe and secure. 4 is like a gentle walk away from home. It's not too stressful, but it feels like a bit of a journey. And 5 is the point of most tension. It really wants to move back to, or resolve, to the 1 home chord. So when writing your chord progressions, listen to the chords and think about the role that they are playing. Maybe you take a wander away from the home of 1 for a while, or increase the tension by staying on 5. Every major key has 7 chords in it. We've seen the 3 major chords. Now it's time to change gear and look at the minor chords. There are 3 of them, with the Roman numerals 2, 3 and 6. In our G major key example, these are the A minor, B minor and E minor chords. You might have learnt how to play some of these chords already in your guitar journey, so now you can get some use out of them. The easiest thing to do here is to pair one of the minor chords with the 1, 4 and 5 chords that we've used so far. As before, you can play them in any order that you like, so feel free to experiment. I'm going to work with the 6 chord E minor with my examples now. Here's how that sounds in a progression. Now with a palette of 4 chords, we can start to think about the structure of our song. Songs are constructed with different parts or sections. You might have heard of some of these before. They include the verse and the chorus. There are a huge amount of sections and structures that you can consider, but to keep things simple, for your first song, I recommend the following structure: intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. The intro can just be the chorus chords, so really you only need to write 3 song sections. Typically the most important part of the song is the chorus. This is where the emotional peak and most memorable part of the song lies. It repeats with the same lyrics every time it is heard. A verse repeats musically, but the lyrics often change. The verse lyrics will advance a story that the songwriter wants to tell, with the chorus holding the key message. And a bridge, sometimes called a middle 8, is a distinct break from the rest of the song. It's a chance to introduce a new chord, change the pace or rhythm, or even to play a guitar solo. Anything that feels different to the rest of the song. With this in mind, I'm going to write a verse and a chorus for a song. I'll use all of the ideas that we've discussed and the 4 chords I've been working with: G major, C major, D major and E minor. The verse chords will focus mainly on the E minor chord. I want to dwell on this sadness and use arpeggios to make it ring out. Then I'll use some increased strumming on the D chord to launch us into a simple 1-4-5 chorus. This will have more upbeat strumming and chord voicings that are higher up the neck. This will emphasise the importance of the chorus within the song. Also look out for the higher E minor that features once in the chorus for variety. Chords are great fun to play on the guitar, but the key to having a memorable song is a melody or tune. Predictably then, the 4th tip for writing your first song on the guitar is to write a melody. But where do we even start with writing a memorable tune? Well, the process is much simpler than you think. In fact, simplicity is key to melodies that people remember. Think about all the tunes that get stuck in your head. Are you able to hum or whistle them to yourself? Chances are you can, and most other people can. That's because they have a limited amount of notes that are relatively close together in a range that most people can sing. So where do the notes for a melody come from? Well, the easiest thing to do is to use notes from the underlying chords. And because we've already written our chord progressions, we have a ready-to-use set of notes. Melodies are typically sung along with lyrics, but they can also be instrumental. I'm a terrible singer, so I will be playing the melody examples on the guitar. Melodies have a lot of repetition. This is what makes them more memorable. The repetition can be in the use of notes, but just as important is the rhythm with which you play the notes. You can experiment with rhythm by playing the same note over and over with different rhythmic ideas. Think about how this might work with your chords. Will there be some sort of interplay between chord and melody? The chorus chords moved up the neck, so they had the highest notes of the song. And by using the chord notes, this means the melody will also have the highest point here. This is a great technique for writing choruses. Save the highest notes for the point of maximum emotion in the chorus. You can play the chord note melody anywhere on the neck, but the easiest thing to do, at least to start, is to hold the same chord shapes as you did when playing the progression and just pick out the relevant notes on the relevant strings. Just remember that we're not trying to play arpeggios here. It's also an idea to use chord notes that are higher up in the chord shape so they can ring out more easily as the chords are played underneath. With that in mind, here's a simple melody idea for some of the G major key chord progressions that I created. Chord note melodies are nice and easy to write, but they can sound a bit safe and predictable. So what can we do to change this? This is where you can introduce scale notes. The 7 chords that belong in any major key are all constructed with the same notes from the relevant major scale. For example, the G major key chords are constructed with notes from the G major scale. What this means is you have a pool of 7 notes to use when writing your melodies. This then becomes a game of balancing notes. You want a nice mix of notes that are in the underlying chord and other scale notes. Whilst notes from the chord sound safe, scale notes add tension and interest. Different scale notes will have different levels of tension against your chords. So this will be a process of trial and error to achieve the sound that you are looking for. So if we go back to our example, I'll now blend chord notes with notes from the G major scale. These are G, A, B, C, D, E and F sharp. As you write your chords and melody, you might also want to think about how you are going to perform the song. What genre are you writing in? The sounds and effects you use may dictate the chord voicings and play style that you go for. As with everything, this is something that you can evolve over time. To give you a flavour of this, now I'm going to play the chords and melody I've been writing together in a finger-style arrangement. Because this is being played simultaneously, I have made some alterations to things, so it's easier for me to play. See if you can pick out the influences from the earlier examples. Now you can write the chords and melody for a song, you might be worrying about writing the lyrics. And you wouldn't be alone. Many songwriters dread having to work with words. But fear not. The video on screen will show you how simple it is to write your first set of lyrics.